Well, welcome back to Realtor Rendezvous. Today we are here with Aja Burks of Transformative Mind Counseling in Southfield, Michigan. So I know you're probably thinking at this point, talking to a title company, you can get it. Talking to a loan officer, you can get it. Talking to a builder, get it. Talking to a therapist, you don't get it. Which is why we're talking to a therapist today. So one of the aspects that people don't think about during your process of buying or selling is the aspect of emotionally how that affects people, that affects your decision, that affects your household. It actually affects everything. So to learn how to deal with some of those stressors and how to recognize them when you encounter them, we're going to be talking with Aja Burks today and get some feedback on that. And so we'll go from there and then see where conversation progresses and if we need to do any other follow-ups. And if you have any questions, always reach out and then we'll get answers to you. So again, this is Aja Burks and I'm going to turn it over to her. So we'll talk about a little bit about what she does and then we'll talk about stress.
Awesome. How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
And thanks
good.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Stress can show up in lots of different ways for individuals. Sometimes when we typically think of stress, we might think of like work stress. Life stress is also a term that we might say, but that's also very encompassing of everything. Family stress, buying a home or selling a home can also be very stressful. And when we're thinking about stress, it really depends on the individual, but stress tends to show up in our bodies in lots of different ways. So again, it's different for everyone, but an example of that is being very tired, being very exhausted and wanting to sleep a whole lot more, or not being able to sleep at all. Same with eating, overconsumption of food, or not being able to eat at all. I know I'm going to the large ends of the spectrums, but that's typically how it might show up for individuals when we're talking about stress. We also might be very quick to anger or frustration or irritability. And the things that typically work for us might not work for us the way that we might usually be able to go to them. So maybe if I can just get a little bit of time to myself, which is beneficial, and helpful, but sometimes if there's a large amount of stress and that amount of time that we typically use may not be enough. And so that then increases our irritability, our frustrations, because we are underneath a significant amount of stress. Another thing that happens too with our stress is our thinking process, because we might be, depending on the person, might be very quick to make a decision. And because we want to relieve the stress, we want to relieve the pain that we're experiencing. And so we might be, our thoughts might be a little bit more impulsive or in our thinking process, or very, very quick to respond because we're trying to remove or get rid of that stress and that pain that we're experiencing. So stress does show up differently for everyone, and everyone does experience stress, but there are some things that if we are aware of our typical way of handling and managing things, then it will be easier for us to know if how this stress is exhibiting into our life, into our body.
And one of the things that I do see when families are trying to make a decision, you see spouses start to argue more. My saying is always to my clients, my name is Wes. I'm not in this mess. You two have to work this out. I don't take sides. I just try to help pros and cons of decisions that they may make. But I do see the tension that starts to build when one really wants something and the other one doesn't want that, or they're trying to see if they can cooperate and if they can give a little, take a little, because each person can't get everything they want out of a house, or they can't be in a particular neighborhood, or it's going to cost a little bit more than what they wanted. And so they start, instead of working as a team, they start to argue. And then the other issue that they don't necessarily realize is that if they have children, their children are now experiencing, because they're moving away from their friends and the neighborhood that they know and they grew up with, And one thing I've mentioned as well, animals actually feel that move as well. And I know that because we had an animal when we made a move and didn't take the move very well. So recognizing that your family is also being affected, not just you, and it might cause heightened sensitivities and more arguments than normal. and kids acting out because of that.
Yeah. So not only is it the individual stress, it's the stress of the entire system, the entire family. That's a part of it, and everything that's connected to that transition. So along with those same things that we're talking about as an individual, what you might be experiencing, other individuals within our family or individuals, I'll just say in our household, might be also experiencing those same physical responses to stress as well. So it's a lot of things to be mindful of when we're thinking about ourselves, but then also thinking about the well-being of our family too.
So for those that, because I see it, they call it buyer's remorse. It really is just a stress reflex.
Mm-hmm.
The term, which I do not like and I do not adhere to, or I do not adopt, is they say buyers are liars. That's a total wrong statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they have an idea of what they want and they tell you that initially, but until they go out and look at a home, they really don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And initially what they start out telling you, they usually don't end up buying that because there's something that's more important that they just don't realize until they actually go out and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
But it causes that stress within themselves, because they've had in their mind they wanted this, and they actually end up here, and then they start double questioning themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, and then that's where they get that remorse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm settling, not getting what I want. And so that's where that buyer's remorse comes in. And it's not buyers are liars. It's just they don't know all the time. They don't understand. And then they get the pressure from boyfriends or girlfriends or coworkers because they're trying to compete with their coworkers or people living up to the Joneses, those type of things. All that outside pressure on top of all this thing, and then you sign in a stack of paper that high, and at the end of the note, you're buying a house for this amount, but the amount that you pay over 30 years is 3 times that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a first-time buyer, that freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I are sitting at the table, and we go to sign, and I said, wait a minute, what's that number? We're only buying a house for this. Where did this number come from?
Mm-hmm.
And all that compounded interest. And I stopped, and I said, are we sure we want to commit to that?
Yeah.
It was a shocker, and immediately I broke out in a sweat because I'm like, oh my God, it was like a noose around my neck. But as you get older, you understand some things differently. But so all those things go on in their minds. So any advice you can give as far as how to calm those stresses or some techniques to get past that, and some things maybe they can work out with the family to help everyone along?
Yeah. One of the things that I think is very important is try to maintain routine as much as possible. So in the home. So even though there is a transition out of the home, so there might be boxes and, things of that nature, but whatever the routine is, or if there's every Friday is movie night and pizza night or something, that stays the same, to try to keep routine, try to keep some consistency. Because I know that sometimes can leave in the process, especially when we're under, a significant amount of stress. Routine can kind of go out the window sometimes. Another thing to really think about is to really give yourself some self-compassion or give yourself some grace. Most of the time, like you said, living up to the Joneses or the other people, other pressures around us trying to make a decision, or thinking that this is what we wanted, but this is what we can get, or, giving ourselves some compassion that we are making a huge transition, and the other end of that is a huge question mark. We don't know what we're actually going to receive. There are things that we may feel like we really do want, but also know that if I give myself compassion, I know that I can also change my mind too. And I don't have to be set in a way and that this is it and this is all I can find and this is all I want. Or my mind did change, and why did my mind change? I can't believe my mind changed. It's like give yourself some self-compassion to allow yourself to just know that there's a question mark on the end of this. And you're going through a journey, and as you go through this journey, there's going to be lots of things that come on that road that you're not aware of. So if you allow yourself some grace, allow yourself some self-compassion, then that will allow that journey to be a little bit more smoother. You won't be so hard on yourself. The anxiety or the anxiousness can go down some, because we're not putting so much pressure on ourselves. In addition to that, I think it's important to a really good look at our bodies and how we're showing up. There are typical ways or typical ways for ourselves that we hold on to stress. Everyone's different in how they hold to stress, but the way that I hold my stress is probably the same in every situation, or it might be a little different in some situations, but there might be my typical things that I do. So as an example, one thing that I personally do is I grind my teeth. I will clench down really, really hard, and that ends up leading to a headache for myself. And so I have multiple headaches. I'm like, what is going on? It's because I am grinding my teeth like crazy. I'm about to break my teeth because I'm grinding them so much.
Okay.
So that's an indicator for me to know that I am under a significant amount of stress, and I have to be very mindful of my body. Some people are tappers, tap their foot or tap their hand, or have like that restless leg. I know that restless leg syndrome is actually a thing, but there are people who under stress continue to have like that restless leg or tapping. Sometimes we don't breathe. Sometimes we are tense, and so our shoulders are up to our ears all the time, and we're just not aware of it. So another thing to do is to really be mindful of our bodies and actually do a body check and just say like, what is my body doing right now? Is there anything that's in my body that is very tense? And maybe I need to relax that thing. So my jaws are tense because they're clenching. So I need to like really move my mouth. I know you can't see my mouth right now, but really move my mouth to really get that relaxed and loose. Maybe my shoulders are up to my ears. I need to really work on like allowing my neck to relax and release. So really taking a look at our bodies to be able to get a sense of that for ourselves. When we get into the practice of that, sometimes it is easier to see how much the stress is really taking over our body. And then we can also give ourselves some compassion. Like, oh, this is a lot. This is a lot that we're experiencing. So I need to give myself some space. I need to allow myself to just know that everything doesn't have to be perfect. Whatever perfect is. And then also with our family units, our individuals that we live with, giving some compassion to them too. We've been talking about self-compassion, but also just extending it to them as well, because they might not necessarily be aware of the stress either. And so if they're under a significant amount of stress, and say, you know what, this is a stressful time. We're both experiencing it. And so just kind of bringing that to the present and saying, I just need to like release some of this like pent up energy or stress, and then try to work to release that.
Okay. So in essence, it sounds like keeping that routine is highly important. And I would say especially for kids, because they need that consistency. It helps them feel safe. I know with my daughter growing up, she didn't like change. She still doesn't, but she didn't handle it well. Any kind of change. Initially, when we moved to our new home, she was 2. And she was potty trained, but for some reason she decided, I'm not gonna go to the bathroom anymore. And we didn't know. We had her daycare, and we didn't know. It was a month after we had moved, and we're in a new house, and we have a second floor where it's a rail so you could see. And she stood right in front of her bathroom. My husband and I were sitting down, and we looked up at her, and she just went to the bathroom. And we went, the heck? She stood in front of the bathroom. And I said, what is that? And so we didn't know what was going on with her. So when we took her to daycare, the next day I talked to the person there, and I said, hey, I'm not sure what's going on with her, but just watch her and let me know. I got pull-ups again because for some reason she decided she's not going to go. And she says, well, she's been doing that for about a month now. And we figured it was because of the move and that it would kind of work its way out. However, as a parent, that was a little upsetting that my child is showing a change of behavior and I wasn't aware of it. You didn't let me know. So I was not happy. And I'm like, a month? I should have known the minute that it happened so that I can address this, because there's things that we could do at home to help her with that transition. So, and it was just unfamiliar for her, and she didn't know how to voice that. And at daycare, because she was with him throughout the day, which was another little change. But so we took her out that night. We got home when I found out, and we took her favorite character and we plastered it all over her room because we hadn't painted yet. And then she knew that was her room. We were home, and this was hers. And like that, went back to potty train and didn't have to worry again. But it was that a stress of the move and the unknown and her feeling uncomfortable. Now she wasn't threatened. I mean, she was feeling threatened and insecure.
Yeah.
So I'm highly aware of how that affects families overall when they're making a move like that, especially children, and they don't tell you because they don't know how.
Yeah, they don't have the words, especially not at 2. I don't know what any of this means.
No. And with the teenagers, they usually act out a little bit, and it's friend related. But they see the parents are so happy, and they don't want to have the parents not be happy and not have the parents not appreciative of a new home, so they keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
But I could see in their interaction of how that changes over time. All the way up to we get to closing.
Yeah. Resentment. To set in
and not realize it. So definitely keeping the family routine. So that's something that I will keep in mind as a realtor, to make sure that my clients tell me that they normally do something on a particular day, then I will resist allowing them to schedule on that day and time. So no, you do what you normally do. We'll take care of this another day. But then also, as you say, giving yourself some grace. And giving your other family members grace. And my biggest thing is ignoring your coworkers and trying to keep up with them.
Yes.
Because they're usually not telling you the truth.
No.
I got a deal for this and I've only paid this for that. More times than not, they're embellishing to make it seem like they got such a great deal. And so my clients struggle with that. I see that, trying to compete with this great deal and, well, why can't I get it? Those type of things. But as you said, in noticing, recognizing where you store your stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
And dealing with that, because mine is in my shoulders. I go to my chiropractor and she goes, what's on your mind these days? Because it's all right here, and I can feel it when my neck starts to hurt. And then I'm doing this a lot, going, oh, yep, that hurts. So probably got about a minute. So any other final tips that you want to share?
One of the things we were talking about tension, and tension is definitely one of the things to really think about, the eye twitch. I wanted to add that one to it. But another one that you don't really feel tension in, but it happens, is in your stomach, is in your gut. So when you have like really stomach problems, stomach issues, it might be related to the stress that we're experiencing. And so we want to be mindful of that too, like how our stomach is acting, behaving, and it can be directly related to our thought process and our stress. Our brain and our gut is a very direct line to how we're experiencing things. So I wanted to add that gut feeling as well. But in regards to tips, definitely keep that routine for everyone as much as you can, or even just the routines of the things that you really enjoy doing together. It's like, we do this on Mondays, but it's not really like a great thing. But on Wednesdays we do this, and that's a fun thing. Then I would keep that going. Definitely continue the self-compassion, and then the compassion for the rest of the household. The Joneses are not really the Joneses. They don't really exist. And just know that there's something that is out there that will fit you, but may not necessarily be what you considered in the very beginning. So being very open to the question mark with that move.
And just real quick, I'm glad she mentioned about the gut, because that is where your immune system is. And if that is not healthy, you won't be healthy. I know firsthand. So I'm very sensitive about watching my gut, especially during the season that we're in. We need all of the immune system support that we can get, because if your stomach is messed up, you're messed up, and that's going to cause a whole nother set of stressors for you. So don't need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Check your gut.